Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Barkus, also your go-to women's empowerment coach. If you're ready to feel powerful, regain your confidence, and rebuild your life after a breakup, you're in the right place. I've created an amazing high-impact video training that you can watch at double speed while you're doing other things. It's designed to help you take control, figure out what you want, and start feeling confident again. Make sure to grab your free resource by joining my email list at morganbarkus.com. Now, let's dive into today's episode. All right, Christina, let's introduce you. You're gorgeous. You look great. I'm loving this jacket on you and your unique eyeglasses. And let's talk about what you do for a living. All right, so Christina is a family coach that helps families align their money, goals, and time. A lot of us aren't trained to manage finances, think and talk about our goals, or set boundaries that reflect how we really want to be spending our time. And there isn't a lot of support available for this work. Christina believes that our families are our business and deserve the kind of support and thinking a company might get, as well as the compassion that someone who has been through it as well can bring. Christina helps her clients become friendly with their daily finances, create and talk about their goals for themselves, their family members, and the family as a whole, and make sure that there is space in the schedule to live lives that they love. Christina, thank you for being here.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited as well because this is not a topic, I will say, in my family. My parents managed their money extremely well, and I observed how they managed their money. I got a $5 allowance every week for cleaning the barn. I grew up on a hobby farm, so that was my responsibility and how I earned some extra cash in my youth. And I can't say that we ever had regular conversations about money. I'm curious about your journey into this genre of coaching, if you will, and really talking about money, and not just money for a person, money for the family, and then the things that come with that. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So I grew up in a similar way, where I got an allowance or some kind of allocation and then was expected to figure it out. And I think that that's true of a lot of people, that they grow up watching other people manage money to a certain extent, or maybe those other people actually don't share much about what they're doing. And then there's often very little training or direct communication about money. How do you think about it? How do you keep track of it? What do you do with it once you get it? There's this overall cultural assumption that you grow up, you come out of high school or college, you get a job, and then you're going to deal with your money. But nobody tells you how most of the time, a lot of the time. And then often people, especially women, are given this feeling that they're not good at math. There's a feeling that money is complicated and hard to understand. And then you do go out and you get a job and you begin to have an income, and sometimes you then have a family. So you're actually managing quite a bit and quite a few financial responsibilities, but still without that explicit training, without knowing what to do, and also culturally without being able to talk about it.
I have that question. You know, you think about money, I would say that there's obviously some quote unquote taboo topics that everybody says, well, don't talk about sex, religion, or money with people. And I think, okay, maybe not religion, because some folks are there and some folks are not, and that's great. You do you. Money and sex, most likely everybody is participating in that in some manner. And I just think, in your opinion, tell me more about why you think it's so taboo to talk about money. I've had people ask me, even coworkers, they're like, hey, if you don't mind me asking, like, how much did you make? Whatever. Like, there's just like, or even friends that aren't in my business, and it's like, oh, they're very vague about it. And I just say the thing, like, well, yeah, this month I had commission, and after taxes, it was only this much. And I'm just very candid, because I think we're all dealing with money literally every day, almost all day long. So why are we being so weird and coy about this? So tell me more. Why do you think that comes from?
Where does it come from? I want to reinforce your story that it's true. first of all, that people are very uncomfortable talking about money. Even my own mother will get to a certain point in a conversation and then start to feel really nervous and say, oh, we really need to talk about something else. Which is so odd because she is my family and I am the only person that she has to talk to about it.
Well, and truly, it just
apart from a banker.
It's just paper going back. And I met a gentleman years ago, and he makes very good money, so he can say this to some degree, because for some people, it's not just paper. Like, this is, they're barely hanging on. And at the end of the day, it really is just paper that kind of goes in and out of our life. And sometimes there's more of it, and sometimes there's less. And it's like, why are we not having candid conversations about this thing that we're all exchanging?
Yeah, for a lot of people, it is a way to think about self-worth, and there's a huge amount of judgment around it. Okay. So, on the one hand, people feel like having money is a good thing, right? In general, having money is a good thing. We admire people with money, but we also really like to hate people with money. Right? Like, oh, those rich bastards, or whatever it is. We like to judge people for not having money. We like to judge people for having money. And it is a way for people to have some understanding of social status. And so it can feel really private, where you don't want to share what's going on with your money specifics because you are concerned about being judged.
That makes sense.
So that's one of the reasons to not talk about it. And maybe that's something that translates into families as well. But I think that generally people don't talk about it within families because it feels hard. It feels complicated. And I think often parents don't feel fully confident in their own management of money. And so they don't know what to say. There's not, there's a way to have a birds and a bees conversation, but nobody says, oh, my dad had the budgeting conversation with me.
Yeah, or there's some shame around it because you've mismanaged. I remember when I was in my 20s, I was a hot mess with money. And like you said, there was no formal training. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was totally winging it. I had no idea that going into the big wide world, how much taxes would affect my actual paycheck. And then now you're factoring in just cost of living. And yet I wanted to have fun. And how do you balance? And when you don't have disposable income, and I was spending it anyway. Then there became some shame. And when I started just admitting, hey, I'm struggling, or my credit score is really bad, how do I fix this? And I had a friend that helped me. And I think when I brought it to light and thought, rather than being shamed and not talk about this, how about I just face the facts? And I would say my money story turned around when I was, believe it or not, 40 finally, when I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this money thing out. That is my New Year's resolution. And I wrote down every dollar that I owed anybody. Like a friend lent me money 4 years ago. It was $300. And I thought, I'm going to pay her back. I'm going to write this down. And within 3 to 4 years, I managed to pay off every single thing that I wrote down, except my student loans, because those are pretty big. That's one hurdle I haven't managed yet. Anyway, but all I'm saying is when I brought it all to light and I wrote it all down, put it in my own face, but also then asked for help, read books, that's when the whole money thing changed for me. With you, was there a turning point? Why are you getting into it? Like you said, your families aren't necessarily talking about because they don't know how. What's your story and how you got to where you are, why you're doing the coaching that you're doing?
Yeah, so a huge reason behind what I'm doing is that I have a very similar experience where I grew up in a family with resources, but we actively avoided talking about money. And I was expected to figure it out and put out into the world without any tools to know how to do that. And then I had a family and started needing to manage family finances and work in partnership with my partner around money. And so I began to track, I started to learn about money. I started to figure it out and started to think about how my own behaviors and decision-making could be adjusted so that I would actually have the money that I wanted for the things that I wanted it for, rather than a lot of sushi. Um, or people spend a lot of money on eating out. Um, and I really feel that it's both unfair and unnecessary for people to be adults in the world, feel like they don't have high financial literacy or any financial literacy, not feel like they can talk about it, and then feel like they get blamed for messing up. I feel like it's an unfair and unnecessary system, and also one that is really hard to get help for. You know, there are certainly books out there that you can read, and podcasts and so on personal finance, but it's quite unusual to find somebody who will help you individually. You know, it's easy to find a financial planner or a tax preparer or an accountant, but nobody really will sit you down and say, look, hey, here's how you understand your money. Let's just look at it. You don't have to do math, actually. You have to look at a number, but you don't actually have to do math. The computer will do the math. And it's so liberating to help people to begin to understand their finances, to begin to know how to look at it, to set up budget systems for them so that all their transactions from their bank go into it, and they can say, oh, wow, this is how much I'm actually spending on groceries or eating out or travel. You know, that's another one that gets big fast. And so it's something that I have seen a need for and a lack of service for, and I'm super excited to help people with. It's fun to have the conversation with somebody else about their money details with a lot of confidentiality.
What would you, just because I'm curious, what would you say you spend the most amount of money on it? I will admit I don't like to cook, so I eat out a lot. And I almost order Uber Eats to the point where it's like every other day and I get something that can last 2 days. So like I love Indian food, so I'll get like a couple different dishes and then split it over up a couple days, and then it's like, well, now I got to order again, but there goes like $57, you know. So what's
Yeah.
your, I don't want to say guilty pleasure because that's not what it is, but where like in your budget you're like, yeah, I over index in this area. Do you have one?
Travel is one that gets to be surprisingly big.
Sure. Even living in Chicago, I went for last summer. I was like, how am I spending this much money on parking? Just parking alone for a month was in the hundreds because of it's like
Well, yeah.
24 here and 40 here. And it was just, it's a lot to park. And then plus now you're eating. Anyway, let's go to family because I'm very curious. I would love a real life story without names, of course, where you swooped in and helped a family. Like, what's the process? What was the main issue? What are some of the main struggles? And then do you like meet with the parents first and then go, okay, now we're going to talk about how to chat with the kids about money, and like to take me through like a real life scenario and how you help them with some of the main problems that come up with families and how you help them move around those issues.
Yes. So different families have different things that they want to focus on. So I can tell a few different stories.
Yeah.
One good story. I was chatting with a client, and she is one of those super moms. She's one of the ones where everybody in the community says, "Oh, how does she do it all?" Or if she's involved, then everything's going to be fine. Or, you know, oh my gosh, she's arranging another thing. So she is that person, and also felt pretty overwhelmed. And so I said, okay, let's look at your goals, and we'll do it with your whole family. But let's look at each individual person's goals, and then we'll all talk as a family. So what I did is I gave her a sheet, an exercise, and she looked at her work position, the actual work that she was doing, her social life, her family life, her personal growth, a whole range of different aspects of her life. And she ranked where she was on a scale of 1 to 10, and then wrote down what would make it a 10. And for her, out of these 8 or so different categories, she was at a 9 or 10 for most of them. So it was like everything was going awesome, but all of her little notes were like, it's too much, it's too much, it's too much. And so she was an interesting case where we then had to think about how to take it down a notch. And she and her partner did these exercises, and then each of her kids got a questionnaire about the kinds of things that they like to do, what they might like to do in the future, what's important to them, how they feel about their family, how they feel about their friends, and so on. And I pulled a bunch of images for them. So images that I got from them of their family, and then images that related to each of their goals. And we sat down and we all did a vision boarding session. So everybody could communicate with each other in a visual and exciting way.
That is really cool.
About what they wanted. So everybody did their vision boards with different aspects. You know, some of the kids had 17 ponies, basketball friends, travel. This family is actually really focused on money, so they all were thinking about money. And then the mom, her vision board ended up being half family and half essentially one large picture of needing to chill out, needing to do less.
What, was she like on a hammock on a beach or something? What do you mean? Well, how did she represent that visually?
I'm trying to remember exactly. It was sort of like, please, like how to emerge from the fire of doing too many things. It's like a diagram of coming out of chaos. Yes. And so then everybody shared their vision boards and how their family members could support them. We put them up so they could see them every day. And with her, I worked on how to do less. Like, we listed out all of the things that she feels like she's responsible for, with the goal of identifying a quarter of them that she would absolutely not do anymore.
Wow.
So that she could focus. Because there are things that you can get other people to do, or there are things that you can just say no to. And so I helped her to identify ways that she could do less. And then helped her to set up the system and have her vision board up so that she could remember to do less. Because one of the tricky pieces of transforming a system, either your own behavior or family behavior, is that without reminders and repetition, you will revert to what you were doing before. Because that is how we function as people. That's what's efficient for us. We have routines. And if we had to rethink all of our routines every day, we'd never get anywhere. And so what I also work with people to do is to continue to check in. Okay, so we've done our vision boarding. Let's check in a month from now and see, have you made the adjustments that you want to do? Has your husband scheduled that time surfing that he wanted to do? Do your kids have 5 activities, not 7? And just to help people to have some support and accountability, they look very similar to get to where they actually want to go.
I like that. And it honestly doesn't sound like it was totally focused on money. It was like you were it said in your bio.
Goal focused, yeah.
Yeah, very goal focused. And yes, it's going to take money to do some of these things. And can we all get on the same page and realize how we're all in this together? That's really cool.
Yeah, and I can tell a money story too. So
yeah, please.
I have another client who is, she's quite well off. She's managing a family. She has quite a few children, and resources coming in. And we were talking and she was saying, I have some potential big projects coming up where we might be making big investments, but I don't have clarity on our finances. And so what I did is I went and had a chat with her, and we signed a bunch of confidentiality statements. and she pulled all of her financial details together and said, I really just don't know how to look at this and don't feel like I have any financial literacy or high financial literacy.
So she was just making a lot of money and just hoping that it would all fall into the right place?
Yeah, which people do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, if it seems like something you don't have to pay attention to, then a lot of people don't. Why,
Sure.
Why would they? It feels scary and complicated. And a lot of people think their partner will deal with it, which may or may not be accurate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and God forbid something happened to your partner or the relationship crumbles and you've never paid attention to where the money's going, how to take care of things. That's not ideal.
Right. Yeah, and so in their relationship, nothing was hidden, but she just didn't know how to look, and then didn't know how to make a decision
Sure.
about something that would have a financial impact. And so for her, we went through and helped her identify categories of spending, fairly detailed budget categories, and then helped her set up a system so that she didn't have to do any math. She could just take her bank statements and transactions and categorize them and begin to see what she was spending on what. So, what is she spending on pets? What is she spending on groceries? What is she spending on eating out, transportation, washing the car, childcare, all of these different things. And it was really fascinating to sit with her and do that and have her say, "What is this? What is this transaction? And also, why is the account balance this? And do we really have that much balance on our credit card?"
Yeah.
And it was just a process of giving her information so that she could make decisions. Um, and and her partner had said at one point, "Oh, we're running a deficit." And she said, "What? Is that?" And so they can now figure out, is that something they want to keep doing? Is it something there's a plan to balance out?
Yeah.
So
I'm watching a show on Apple TV right now. A gentleman got into finance, started doing better and better and better. Every house got bigger, bigger, bigger. There's fancier cars. And then he ended up losing his job. And that, to me, his lifestyle was already, to me, excessive. Like, why so big? Like, you could only live in so much house. And, to me, but I'm also a bit of a minimalist in that way. And I just thought, this is the exact reason I would not want that much stuff, because if something does happen, now look at all these things that you have to pay for and you don't have the money for. That is, to me, is like scary. That's scary, because it looks
yeah,
good on the outside, but if something happens, like, you're living way above your means if there's one little thing that goes out of alignment.
yes, like the stock market.
Well, that too, yes. Well, that guy was in finance, yeah, so it was not good. And then on top of that, someone else's career was in line with his because he was helping him manage that money. And so now this guy's not getting paid because I was just like, this is too much responsibility. He overextended financially, and there's no way to very quickly downsize. I don't know. To me, that freaks me out. Have there ever been cases where you've gone in and really found out that folks are way overextended, and they're actually, maybe their priorities weren't lined up? Like, I'm just thinking, maybe their vision board, for instance, using that family, is to travel more, and we can't because we're paycheck to paycheck, even though our paycheck's huge, but we have like all these things we're paying for, which now limits our ability to travel, when if we would have just kept our house a little smaller and certain expenses a little more in check, we could be flying first class to Paris tomorrow. Like, do you ever find that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that it can be a case of overextending in a lot of different directions. And so my job is to help say, "Hey,
Let's take a closer look.
let's take a closer look so that you can have the information you need to make a decision." Because what's tricky about money is that if we don't talk about it, we don't talk. A lot of time, people don't feel like they have the time to talk to their partner about it. It feels like it's not fun, so they don't for years.
Mhm.
And so, if that is the dynamic, it's something that you don't really want to look at, it's something you don't feel like you can talk about, it's not a part of your daily life, then money decisions often become emotional decisions in a really fundamental way.
Mhm.
And so you're not really thinking through your commitments. And yes, so you can get yourself into a tough situation.
My guess is not every conversation goes super smooth between partners or even involving the kids. Do you have an example of a conversation you've helped facilitate that was a little rocky in the beginning?
um, well, I think what's sort of interesting is that often what happens is that one of my clients wants to talk with me, and the other partner doesn't feel like they want to dedicate the time.
Mm, sure.
So that is an interesting dynamic to navigate, and it sometimes puts my client, the person who wants to talk to me, in kind of an intermediary role, or they're needing to go back to their partner and say, hi, can we share all of our financial statements with this coach?
Fun. Sort of like asking your partner who doesn't want to do couples therapy. Yay.
Yes, yes, yes. But generally, people do, once somebody's on board and it's clear that it's confidential and that I am not having any of their data and I am providing a helping service that's giving them clarity. Generally, that gets people on board.
And in such a bigger way than a financial advisor. I love my financial advisor. We do talk about goals. I mean, she knows I'm a single woman who has certain dreams. And so she has gone through those with me, and still different than what you do. I mean, you really, it's not, because I could see a partner going, do we really need this? Like, we know how to budget. We have a financial advisor. This is very different. This is much more about almost like family therapy in a way, or just, I don't know if I want to call it therapy. And even a family with the vision board. What a cool way to start talking about our dreams and our hopes and our just things that we're really interested in. And even if we don't get to go to Thailand and, play with elephants, maybe we find a different way to fulfill that fun thing that the kid wants. I don't know. I just feel like it's a really cool way to start conversations instead of just how families operate day to day. And did you grab your lunchbox and this, you know what I mean? Like it adds
Yes.
some really cool ways to talk in a more fun way outside of daily operations about each other's like hopes and
Yeah.
dreams and heart.
Yeah. And I think that I love financial advisors. They are really,
Love mine.
lovely, and they provide a great service, and I am not one.
Yep.
And I pick up where financial advisors leave off. So a financial advisor will say, hey, what are your goals, while you're in a session with them, and you look at your partner or yourself and you're like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, and they can change.
And they can change. And then the financial advisor says, well, everything's going to be fine. Just put away however many tens of thousands of dollars this year and we'll be great. And then you leave after an hour and you're like, how?
Yeah.
How am I meant to do that? So it's a need that I experienced myself. Where I would be sitting there looking at somebody who I was talking to about retirement planning and thinking, how do you expect me to do that? There's no support for me to go back and figure out how to adjust my own behavior to do that, meet that financial goal. Somebody has to be willing to talk to me about my grocery spending.
I like that. So to clarify, financial advisor says, here's how much you need if you want to live this long with this kind of income in this place. Great, go do it. And you're saying you come in and say, okay, well, now we know that. Great, we've got the numbers. How are we going to work on your behavior, your priorities, your goals, and then also learn how to do it in the family because we're a part of a family. Am I?
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're not in the financial advisor's office, again, the decision making around money is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to give yourself that framework before you are making a financial decision at the ticket counter of the movie theater or the snack counter. Where you have decided what you're doing with your money and I actually can't spend X on going to Tahiti because I am putting away, $1,500 a month for my retirement. So yes, and then I help people to, within their family, figure out how to talk about it. Because once you get two people making emotional decisions about money, things can go a little bit off the rails because somebody can say, oh, it's terrible. I really want to go for a weekend away. I'm so stressed. And the other person's like, well, we don't really maybe have that money that we've decided to use for that, but you're unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's spend the money. So before that happens, I work with families to say, okay, when you are making a decision, you've got your goals articulated, you have your vision board. When it's decision time, look at them. And then you have a framework around you for making a decision. So you don't feel like you're doing it in this more immediate emotional void.
Sure.
Make sense?
Yeah. Quick question for, as you know, you and I are in our same business coaching program, and I've worked a lot with my ideal client, and still in the confidence realm, and I'm shifting from strictly body confidence to confidence, and particularly helping women rebuild after relationships. So they break up and now they got to rebuild. Is there an example, or what would be some quick tips and tricks for a woman who has been a part of a family unit and now is starting over? She's 30s, 40s, maybe in 50s, and she's like, wow, now I'm on my own, and this is different. And now, is there a way you're helping families? Now we're also maybe finding a woman who is going to be exiting the family dynamic, and it's the way that it was for years.
Yes, for sure. And that can be a super disorienting time because all of a sudden this other person who you relied on to do things is not there anymore.
Sure.
And, we're going to assume that, we're building the woman's confidence. We're building, this is going to be a positive transition. Right. And it is fundamental, is so helpful to have some confidence around having a financial platform that you can rely on. That eases an incredible amount of stress. And really the first step in that is understanding your own finances, understanding what you have and what your spend rate is, so that you know that you're okay. It gives you, people don't talk about it, but it gives you this fundamental feeling of security. If even if it's not the greatest, even if you just know what you're dealing with, it gives you a lot more choices. And then there's the process of setting goals. What do you want to do from here? And how will you get yourself there? And again, one of the really tricky parts about change and setting and achieving goals is that you are adopting a new behavior, and that takes time and repetition and telling yourself something over and over and making a different choice over and over until it becomes easier, until it becomes more a part of what you do and what you are. And that's something that I think is really important to work with people on. Also, I'm not a patient person, and I would love it if I could make a plan and decide what I'm going to do, and then that will be the case for forevermore. But our brains don't work like that. And so, but that's what the culture narrative is. First of all, we're not allowed to talk about money. Also, secondly, if you make a decision, you're going to do that thing, right? It's like, here's my New Year's resolution, I'm going to do it. But actually, 5% of people do it.
Well, there's not really a lot of accountability. I mean, who's going to care if you decide to fall off the wagon? I mean, unless for you, it's really you're dedicated to it.
Yeah, there's not accountability, and there's not an understanding of how we actually change. There's this dominant narrative that you can decide something and then it will be so, which is not reflective of how our brains work. Our brains run some automated processes, and we'll get a trigger and our brain will give us a response. And if we want to do something different than we have in the past, we have to be able to catch ourselves before we do the usual thing and reroute. And we're building new neural networks. We're building new routes in our brain. We're building new habits when we are intentionally changing. And it can be really helpful to have somebody to talk to about it, to reinforce, yes, you are moving in the right direction. You may not be perfect, but yes, you're moving in the right direction. And obviously, as this is my work, I think it's great to have somebody to talk to about it and check in with about it and say, oh, I spent a little bit more on eating out than I wanted to. let's course correct. Let's go back. Let's come back to our goals. What do we want to do? How are how are we going to do it next time in a supportive environment?
I am a huge advocate for coaching. There have been different points in my life, whether it was a breakup I was transitioning, or like you said, the financial stuff. There was a time where I had switched careers. That was an adjustment, and I got a coach to work, sort of give me perspective and tips and tricks on how to make that transition. Talk more about your coaching. And I mean, because like I said, a huge advocate, and who it's really ideal for, and how they find you and start this relationship in this process.
Yes. So it's so interesting to be a coach because you can help so many people. So there's that. I hate to say, oh, I don't help these people because I don't feel that way. If somebody comes to me and says, can you help me? I will say, let me think about that. Let's see if that will work. However, that said, my core client base is working with families. I generally work with the mom in the family, or whoever it is who is the person who manages day-to-day finances, who knows where and how many socks the kids have and whether they need more, and does all of that family management and spending. And often that person is the mom. So I work with that key point of contact. It's often the mom. And generally the families that I work with they have some flexibility in terms of articulating their goals and making financial choices. So, they're often people with resources who have a bit of time and money to think, how can we really make our families as successful as possible? How can we work together as a team? How can we be in that loving dynamic that everybody wants within their family, where people feel well connected and well supported, and you can all have a great time and love each other and get to where you want to go. Who doesn't want that? So it's families who value that and who think, hey, maybe we're crushing this normal thing. Maybe we've got 2 kids and 2 cars and a house and we live in a nice place, but like I'm so busy, I can't think straight, and I don't know where the money goes, and and I just work and sleep and cook and clean. Sure. And
I'm curious, as you're talking, what about your own family? You have kiddos, yeah?
Yep, 3 girls.
So was there anything that the girls shared where I'm assuming you've had these conversations and you've learned about your kids in a different way, with the money conversation? What have you found out that was surprising to you, or really awesome, funny, something? Because I'm sure you've learned a lot.
Oh, wow. You know what was one of the most interesting things? There are so many stories about this, but one of the most interesting ones was that I have this book that I love that is called Get Rich Lucky Bitch.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
It's a good one. It's a good one by Denise Duffield Thomas, and she's a money coach specifically. She's around money mindset, not so much personal finance, but great. She has a great book. And I thought, oh, it would be really great to listen to this with my daughter. And so we were listening to it together, and the author was talking about, you might not feel confident around money. You might have all of this negative programming around women making money, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was listening to it with my daughter, I was like, she doesn't have that. Like, she's young enough that she doesn't have all that garbage that she's carrying around.
That's not. Did you ask her about it? What did she say?
I did. I stopped the book and I said, this is not, I don't think this would resonate. It resonates for me.
Sure. What did she say?
She was like, yeah, no. Like, I feel like I can do whatever I want.
Good for her. How old was she when you were
She was 12. Yeah.
No. I was going to guess like 23 or something.
She was 12. I think
That's so
I don't know, and so I've been thinking about like when does the lack of confidence kick in? I don't know, and I don't know if it will happen for her because I've been buying her investment books from the age of like 5. You know?
I'm not gonna lie, I tried to do that with my niece and nephew, and they just got dusty.
I mean, they come out though eventually. They come out. They come out. You can try different things. You can say, "Hey, let's invest $200. Let's do it right now." And
Well,
you
I
can.
was like, don't make the mistakes I made, okay? I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't save any money. I spent like a crazy lady and not great, So it was just, I just was like, please don't repeat the things that I screwed up.
It's so amazing that you talk to them about it though. People don't talk about it, you know.
But yeah, I just wanted them to, I mean, they get to, I just think, wow, if I would have went back to 18 with some knowledge and some books and to realize how much it costs, like I said, taxes, and then, okay, great, you have a job that pays you, let's just throw a number out there, $45,000 a year. That means your paychecks are this. And then after taxes, they're that. And don't forget, when you pay your rent, now you only have this much. And it's like, wow, that number just got a lot smaller now that I run some calculations. And then you want me to save? And in my 20s, I was like, I could do that later. Well, now I think, oh my God, if I would have kept the money I had in the money market when I started in my 20s instead of pulling it for a silly reason, oh my God, it would have been, I was just, ugh. So I just, like I said, I told my niece and nephew, please don't make the mistakes I made. So.
Yes, I love that you did that. It's so great. And it's so interesting. I am so grateful to somebody who did an orientation for me for one of my first jobs. I was working in advertising in New York City.
Yeah.
And he said, put 20% of your salary into this 401k. I was like, okay.
You're like, sure.
Okay. So then it disappears, and the emotional 20-year-old who wants to go out for drinks doesn't have access to it.
Well, and 20% is great. I mean, because 10% with a company match,
Yeah, that's also good. Yeah.
Wow.
Anything is good. It's amazing how many people don't participate in those programs at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And when I worked a lot of jobs that wasn't an option. I mean, I worked in fitness and, I just did things or cash jobs. And so unless I was being the responsible one, that wasn't happening. And like I said, if I could go back to when I was 18, I would have done things a lot different financially. So I just really encourage, like you're doing with your girls, start learning as much as you can now. And at least you'll have better decision-making skills as you get into your 20s and get your first job and want to go buy the silly thing and think, is this really smart?
Yes. And it's so good. I really do work with people to make it easy, so that your paycheck, if you get one, or if you're putting your money into a bank account, at some point the money moves it gets automatically transferred.
That's a good thing. I don't love it when I have a $14,000 commission check and it's $8,000 after it's the taxes are taken out, et cetera. And I'm like, where did all that money go?
It's so annoying, but so handy.
Yes. And I'm also like, all right, Morgan, it's all good. 10% went into your 401k. So yes, it's when it's not there, you're like, well, that's a bummer. And at least it went to good things and whatever. Anyway, so back to where people can find you. So you're awesome. I mean, if people have financial advisors, awesome. Keep him or her, and then also hire Christina as your coach. Figure out bigger picture, like what are your goals? How are your behaviors? Let's do some assessing. Where can people follow and find you?
Yes. Oh, thank you. So I am at christinapaul.co.uk. So that's where you can find me on the internet.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Yay. And you can book a discovery call, free 45-minute chat on there. You will appear in my calendar and we will talk, and that will be so exciting. And then I'm at Christina Paul Coaching on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. I think it is a wonderful service, what you're doing, and really making it fun, dare I say, to talk about money.
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
I love that. Well, thank you again for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Morgan. Super fun.
Thanks for listening to Your Unapologetic Life. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with at least one woman in your life who could use a confidence boost. Don't forget to claim your free high-impact video training at morganbarkus.com. Join my email list to stay connected and learn more about my one-on-one coaching program. Girl, you've got this. Let's keep moving forward unapologetically.